Across Indian regions, communities, and classes, one national pastime is always a favorite: spending on weddings.
वैसे शादी में खर्चा कितना कर रहे हैं?
25 लाख रुपए। 4 लाख की तो सिर्फ विलायती दारू आ रही है, ऊपर से लड़के के लिए कार। बताना नहीं किसी को, सरप्राइज।
Entire industries have emerged out of spending on specific aspects of a wedding, like bridal attire or wedding filmmaking. In fact, despite a global pandemic, the wedding industry generated a business of 3 lakh crores between November to December in 2021 alone. So, where does this obsession with spending on shadis come from? Post-independence, up until the 60s, state austerity and rationing controls were the order of the day. The state introduced measures to curb excessive consumption on weddings. The influence of Gandhian ideals and Nehruvian socialism was strong too. In fact, there was even social embarrassment around using weddings to display wealth. Both our attitudes and our access to conspicuous consumption changed in the 1980s and 90s. With the liberalization of the Indian economy, foreign goods flooded the markets, and purchasing these goods became fashionable. At the same time, mainstream Hindi cinema or Bollywood masala movies reframed narratives around Indian tradition to make excessive spending seem almost like a sacred part of Indian weddings. Since the 2000s, the growth of a new urban youth culture and the explosion of social media have laid emphasis on a new kind of wedding spending, which frames it as a personal choice, a combination of modernity and tradition, which is someone's expression of their personality. But it's not just that. At a basic level, all people spend on the big events of their life to publicly celebrate an occasion of personal joy. Marriage ranks high among these events because social tradition around the world has entailed marking the occasion of a wedding by celebrating with extended families and well-wishers. However, while in other parts of the world the institution of marriage is on a decline, in India it still forms an integral part of our lives. Between 80 to 90% of marriages are fixed by Indian families, making weddings more of a family affair which extended communities are heavily invested in. So if it's such an important public celebration, what's wrong with spending on weddings?
See, we like this classy style, but people will not understand, no? They will think we are not spending.
Weddings are the worst example of conspicuous consumption because the social pressure to spend on them is the highest. In such circumstances, people aren't making the choice to spend on weddings in a void. Luxury celebrity weddings, industrialist weddings, elite destination weddings, and tasteful middle class weddings all add to the pressure to spend, making a big fat Indian wedding seem aspirational. Research done by a national NGO shows that over 60% of Indian families turn to money lenders to borrow funds for their weddings. Many poor Indians end up falling into bonded labor to pay off these debts. Families are harassed and ostracized if they fail to spend well on weddings. The prospect of having to spend beyond their means has even driven many to suicide. When the social pressure to spend on one event has such a far-reaching fallout, it's definitely time to reframe how we think of weddings and spending. So, where do we begin? In small nooks and crannies, young Indians are opposing the norm of the big fat Indian wedding by opting for simple ceremonies or court marriages instead. But it's not just about how people are choosing to get married. It's also about how we engage with wedding culture in general. So maybe instead of liking the photo of that celebrity wearing a 20 lakh wedding lehenga or endorsing a multi-event, multi-ritual, multi-themed wedding, it's time that we value simplicity in celebrations and not judge a wedding by how much money is spent, but how much happiness it creates for the people involved. That's it for our latest video in the Overthinking It series. If you enjoy overthinking with us, please don't forget that it doesn't cost any money to like, share, subscribe to the Swaddle and hit that bell icon to stay updated.